Hello everyone, it's been a while since I posted and I've been sitting on this one for quite a while actually, just because it was a little bit of a frustration. So I really enjoy the Zwift Duathlon series. I've done it a bunch of times over the years, where you basically ride as far as you can for 35 minutes on whatever course they've got, and then you switch over to the Zwift Run, and then I run as far as I can on a treadmill for 15 to 20 minutes. So the idea is to just make sure that you're covering as much distance. You're awarded points based on how far you go, and I've always really enjoyed it. It's a great way for me to get some off-season training or some very specific kind of hard training outside of the triathlon season, which during the winter, in Canada, there's not a lot of good opportunities to do it. It also forced me to do a brick session that I may or may not really want to do, and it's been a real enjoyment over the last few years. Today, on this day, I had it all set up, but I didn't do all of the pre-race things that I typically do. Often I almost treat it like a real race, and I get everything sorted, and I wear a race kit and the whole nine. But I didn't test out all my running stuff, which really, as you'll see towards the end, causes a pretty significant kerfuffle. But that being said, I still did get 35 minutes of a really hard ride on a fun course. It's on the volcano course, and you're just doing loops. And I think in this one, I think there's only 10 or 15 other people in the session, but it's still a race that I really enjoy. As you see there, I'm kitted out on my tri-bike. I've gone to a time trial helmet. I've gone with and the uniform kind of goes to a skin suit. It's kind of cool, but just to play around and make the indoor training a little bit more realistic. So I'll pop in and out, but for the most part, we're just waiting for the start, coming out of the holding area and then onto the volcano route. And basically, I'm going to try to stay in just below my FTP, which is in the 200, 220s. My FTP is around 230, I think, but I just try and keep it manageable, because I'm, in theory, at this point and throughout the race, I am planning to also run it on the treadmill as far as I can for 20 minutes, which would put me in the probably touching 4K, 3.5, 4K, and I want to make sure I've got something in my legs when I get there. All right, so for the most part, it's a head down kind of drive. I'll talk a little bit about it as we go, and hope you enjoy. Alright, so I've been cranking away for a couple of minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, and I'm coming into the beginning of the volcano circuit. There's really only one sort of climb in it, and that's the only spot I really pushed. For the most part, I stayed steady effort, trying to make sure that I maintained in and around that 215, 220 kind of range. With a big climb on the outside of the volcano at the completion of every lap, or beginning of the next lap, if you will, is the only spot I just didn't want to lose any speed. So for the most part, this is what it pretty much looked like throughout the whole thing. I may speed up the video a bit just to fast forward our way through. There's a few people in our little group who goes off from probably 5 or 6 different groups throughout the day, and my goal obviously was to try and be the best in the group, but at the same time I'm trying to save a little bit of my legs for that run. It's the constant battle of triathlon, right? You gotta make sure you got a little bit of mustard left in your legs, because you can't bury yourself on the bike, otherwise you're just going to end up walking. So my typical goal, my typical range is I tend to get in the mid-20s on the ride, and then when I get onto the treadmill, I tend to be in that 3 to 4 kilometer range, and sometimes they flip around with the times, 40 minutes and 40 minutes and 15 instead of 35 and 20, but with a 5-minute transition. So it gives you time to flip between, but for the most part, this is what the video is going to look like. Alright, and you can see on the graphic above, there's the climb with the red. Really my goal is to just make sure I carry as much speed through here as I can. So as I come around, I tended to hit it a little harder right about here into the climb to try and make sure I'm maintaining as much of my pace as I can. And then, as you can see, some guys will obviously pass me. As we'll make a left here, and then there'll be a little bump coming up. And during those 2 spots, they're really the only spots per lap that I really went outside of my comfort zone, where I really pushed a bit. And then simply just to try not to lose as much pace as I could. You can see across the bottom my power curve and my heart rate. The heart rate's in line, the power curve's the colors. You can see it pop into that red as soon as I hit the ball. Alright, I'm back coming into those final 5 minutes. I'm at about just coming up on 19 kilometers. I felt like I could probably get into the low 20s, and with the volcano lap being a relatively short lap, it was also trying to get as much distance on this lap as you could, kind of push to get through as far as you could, and then try and get over the hill, over that one climb. If you could get over that, then you had a few easy kilometers after. But if you couldn't get to it, if you got nagged right on it, you probably lost a little bit of distance. But I was feeling good. Still holding in that low 200 range. I drifted a few times, probably I was reaching for a wobble or something like that. It was nothing out of the ordinary. You can see my times and per lap pushing to the left, and they tended to be relatively consistent. Final few minutes, and I'm coming into that climb once again. So I really wanted to hit it hard here. It was a real tug of war in my brain a bit, because I didn't know whether I should go hard and trying to get those extra few meters, or whether I should save a little bit in my legs, because I knew that I was getting off the bike in 2 minutes. But at the same time, I didn't want to give up the easy kilometers on the other side of the climb. So it was a real battle, but I decided to push hard on the way up the climb to see if I could get, I was trying to get into the 22s, see if I could push another kilometer or so over this last flat section. Okay, and here it is, the final few seconds. As I hit 35, I just crest 22. And then I think I finished second within the group, which really doesn't matter that much, but because there's, I don't know how many groups there are today, probably 6 or 7, and the overall standings get calculated in a combined fashion. I am preparing to get the run going. My legs felt pretty good for the most part. I did have to push a few times on those hills, which definitely burned a match or two, but usually when I hop in a race, or whether I'm doing it on the treadmill, I usually feel pretty great after a few strides, and I find my rhythm and then get going. But this is where catastrophe kind of strikes, and this is where my disappointment kind of hit. And I fast forwarded the video a little bit as I shut things down to go from Zwift, the biking portion of Zwift, to the running portion of Zwift. I'm disconnecting everything because usually it shoots right over, but this time it didn't. And then in a second or two, my whole laptop crashes, and that was probably that was the significant part, because it also made me have to reload everything. Now, I fully am to blame, I believe, because I didn't double check that my Zwift pod, I still used the pod. The Zwift pod was connected properly, as in I did all my calibrations and things on it. I hadn't used it in a little bit, but it still comes up. It finds it. Zwift finds the pod, but then it doesn't actually register any sort of connection, and that's where it leaves me at the start line, just working on some stretches. The disappointing aspect is really on my side, but at the same time, we have this expectation that Zwift is, whether it's Zwift or whether it's any other program, we have this expectation that it's just ready, waiting for us at all times. And I just didn't do the background work to make sure that everything was calibrated properly and make sure everything was working properly. Part of it was just because of the way I set things up. Because I hadn't planned on really doing the race, and then I just kind of jumped into it. And as I jumped into it, I skipped over all of the preliminary stuff that I do all the time. It would be like signing up for a race and then just showing up and forgetting your shoes for your bike or your wetsuit for a swim or whatever. It's that kind of same mentality. Just wasn't prepared, didn't do everything laid out. You see the little wrench to the left of the Zwift pod connection, and that's the options for calibrating, and usually I always go through it. So it really brought me to a little bit of disappointment for sure, and you can tell because I did this a number of weeks ago and I haven't posted the video. But at the same time, it also made me think how I could make Zwift run a lot better. And I've recalibrated everything, did some running workouts and whatever, and I've been playing around with ideas of how I can make Zwift run better for me, but as well as for everybody. Like, Zwift Ride has really taken off, and the biking aspect but the running has always lagged behind, and it is something that Zwift is actually not going to pour a lot of effort into anymore. So I think there's some community people who do some great work, and I'm hoping that some of the things I might be coming up with the next little while might add to that as well. So as you see me stretch my hamstring or stretch my quads, that's what he does when it's not connected properly or you're not moving. My little avatar is getting quite a yoga workout, but he's not going to do much in the way of running. And as the countdown timer goes, and you hit 0 and a few other people take off, it's somewhat disappointing for me. Actually, there's no one there to run. They'd probably be running in a different session as well. Or, you know what happened probably is that when when everything crashed, it disconnected from the group and won't show the other runners. So as we leave it, this is where I hopped off the treadmill, tried to do something with my Garmin, but the motivation seemed to be zapped. Sometimes I let technology get in the way of my fitness, and that's one of my flaws. So this one kind of zapped me. But for the most part, the Zwift Duathlon, run by WTRL, as you see there, is an outstanding event, and I will continue to do it. And I'm not disappointed with them in any aspect. It's more with me. So in the future, I'm going to get another one of these workouts done. I'm going to get an opportunity to show you the whole thing in action, and probably do it in a more condensed form. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. As disappointing as the ending is, it still was a great workout, and it still was another great thing Zwift put together, and it got me on the bike. So all told, it's a positive, even though it was a disappointing end. Hope you all have a great day. Hope training's going well, and hope to talk to you soon.